Meanwhile, the current Congress is the third oldest in U.S. history, with the average age of House members at about 58 years old and the average age of senators nearly 64.
24 members of Congress are over 80 years old, with more than half of those running for re-election. But is it time for those congressional elders to retire?
Let's bring in Mark Bednar, former communications director for Speaker McCarthy. And Mark, is there a problem with having so many octogenarians in Congress?
Well, good morning, guys. You know, to one degree, the fact that Americans are getting older, that's due to modern medicine, the MAHA movement, improved technology, et cetera. But there's another side to that. You know, what the country saw with 4 years of the media and Democrats lying about Joe Biden, that was a national disgrace. It was absolutely a travesty. And you know that even Democrats recognize this as a problem now, because they all clamored over themselves to try to take credit for getting Biden out of the race. So there is definitely a national conversation that we need to have right now.
Is that about term limits? Here's some polling on that, by the way. The majority of Americans support term limits for federal elected officials. 76% of Democrats, 82% of Republicans. I'm not a big fan of term limits. I think anybody should be able to run. Is this more a problem, Mark, of like family members, sometimes spouses like Jill Biden, who just want power and aren't willing to tell the truth to their spouse, and say, or maybe don't even love their spouse enough to want them to stay home and take care of them?
Yeah, they want to keep them in Washington, keep them away. Well, the problem is with, it's not just age is a number sometimes. To a degree, President Trump is 79 years old, yet he can run circles around anyone in Washington. And even when he's calling people late at night, they actually have to pretend that they're awake to take his phone call.
True.
So he's nonstop. He's a hard worker, and his mind is always moving. However, this is a problem with both parties, both sides, and it's not going to get any better, because as long as they're incentivized to stay in office and no one's going to tell them these hard truths, then that puts their constituents at risk of having less representation, and it's worse for the country. It's worse for everybody.
And Mark, what is that incentive?
Well, there's what Rachel's point is that sometimes you have perverse incentives of family members or people around them who are clinging to power themselves. Obviously, we saw Hunter Biden wanted Joe to stay in the race because he was eventually going to get a pardon from him. Talk about perverse incentive there. But we need to be really honest. Both sides of the aisle, when we're evaluating candidates as voters, and within the media, it's not just about, is this somebody who you can get a beer with? Is this somebody who has the right ideas for the country? It's, can this person do the job? That needs to be a reinvigorated part of the national conversation in ways that it really hasn't been since right after the debate with Joe Biden.
And lastly, just a few seconds we've got left, Mark. I mean, you ran comms for Speaker McCarthy. How difficult is it as, a leadership to actually get the work of the Americans done in Congress with these octogenarians, some of whom may not be fully engaged?
Well, sometimes it can be really tricky. And also, this is a warning to your viewers. Another negative ramification, should Democrats win the House back, they will reinstitute proxy voting, which means that you can give your vote, hand it to somebody else. So if you're over 80 years old and you're not really with it, you don't even have to show up in Washington anymore, but somebody else can vote for you. So that's a big problem just to have on the horizon here.
Mark, you just hit it on the head. You are a former staffer. I think the American people would be shocked if they knew how much of legislation and what goes on in Congress is done by staffers and not actual congressmen.
It's a great
That's
point.
why I don't have hair anymore.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, we've got you, though, coming on. Mark Bednar, great insight, as always. Have a good day.
Awesome stuff, Mark. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.